On the revenue, we go through and we say, okay, it's going to pay for itself at this time frame. Is there documentation? I mean, is the actual financial study out there somewhere? Like, for instance, I just drove here from 179th at 5:30 on a Monday night. Highway speed, probably more.
Yeah.
I mean, midday, nights, weekends, right now, who's using it? So and was that calculated that there is someone using it?
Absolutely. We did a full traffic and revenue study based on peak traffic, non-peak traffic, and that's what we use to generate those revenues. I think the really important thing when we think about the validity of that study, which I have full faith in our folks. You don't normally, if you're a consultant team, project something that would end up being higher than what reality is. They always want to be kind of conservative when they're estimating those revenues. But KDOT is really taking on the responsibility, the risk, some may say, with those revenues meeting that $20 million. So if Overland Park decides to go down this road, it's really up to KDOT. We're asking you to consider this option because we think it's going to help manage traffic over the long term and potentially generate some local contribution. If we don't realize those years, that's something that KDOT is willing to take on.
Okay, I guess that's fair enough. Man, I'd like to see how many out of how many 10 vehicles at 12 p.m. on Sunday night are you expecting in this toll lane? I'd like to see the actual study of
Yep.
where those numbers came from. That would be much more convincing.
Yep, and we do, Councilman, we do have that on the website. So that information is out there for you all, for the public. We've summarized it in the executive summary that was in your packet tonight.
Yeah.
But the full studies are on the website, and if you have any questions about those or want to pick out some specific details, me and the team would be happy to kind of walk through some of those.
Yeah, I may contact you because I haven't found it on the website. I'm looking for, we predict that this time we're, this many, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
The other ones, and I'll try to make it quick. I got like 10. I'll just keep it to a couple more here. So with this new program, we're talking about $655 million for the toll lane. And that all is going to get built immediately?
No, the first phase of that $655 million project, which is about $300 million, would be constructed starting in 2022. The way that KDOT plans projects, we look at a full corridor and look at how the traffic growth is expected to be generated over time. So that we're not building an improvement that addresses today's issues but doesn't consider issues that we may have in the future. So we study a much larger corridor, and then we look at how we can phase that to bring independent utility and benefit to the community and the people using the system.
Right, okay. But if we had 7% of 740, it could all be built at once?
We probably couldn't build it all at once because we wouldn't be able to fund out of that $2.3 billion that we have for the overall program. We couldn't just invest 740 of that in Overland Park.
And that's kind of where I'm going. I guess this is a general Ike question. Are we the first city that? You're telling us we're number one. So from now on, no city has $40 million to take care of a state highway. So if that's how they're going to get modernized in the future, how is that going to work?
So we already have 3 communities that have agreed to contribute actually more than 7% on their highest priority projects that are in that development pipeline. Wichita and Sedgwick County, similar to Overland Park, have been long-term partners with KDOT on projects that are important to that region. The city of Topeka, for the first time, is contributing to the Polk Quincy Viaduct, which is a project that they were advocating for during T-Works. I think there were a number of communities that hoped that maybe we would see additional revenue as we delivered the T-Works program and could incorporate some additional projects. Polk Quincy was one of those. And so they are bringing more than 7%. I think they're about 9% contribution on that project.
It was listed on there. And I saw there were 3 that actually must have had the money. Well, we don't. So, and I can't, I mean, if does the whole state, that's just how this is going to work. You're going to bring, you better have millions of dollars or else your highway is just going to sit there. Or is there a point where you guys take over? At what point does the local cost share go away?
So we really talked a lot about how we can leverage our resources to really maximize the amount of work that we can do on the state highway system. Again, that $18 billion worth of needs and 2.3 available. And the legislature asked us to be creative. In 2018, we did a joint legislative task force that traveled all around the state kind of talking with different communities. And what they identified is that locals should have a say in how the highways are developing, and if they can partner and compromise on, different ways of doing that, that is something that could help leverage those dollars. So what we looked at is really 3 different ways that you can move from the development pipeline into construction. If you, sort of compromise on the improvement, so maybe you downscope from a 4-lane to passing lanes as one example, or we can phase the project in smaller phases, so that the traditional widening, it might be, smaller phases over time. In the areas where there is resources, we wanted to allow communities to contribute towards those projects as we have in the past, but really offering that as an option to advance the construction of the project.
Right.
So those are kind of the 3 ways you move from development into construction. Or, if it's a really, really significant safety issue or congestion issue, like what we see on US 69, those pieces of those projects can move into construction based on their scores and the issues that we're seeing.
Right. So we're talking about the local cost share or the toll is to advance the construction.
Correct.
And everyone else has chosen cash, and we'd be the first to choose toll, correct?
That's correct. You are the first community that has studied that as an option. But what we did hear from communities during that task force is that they wanted additional options. I'm no expert at city revenues, but I do know that there was a lot of discussion at the state level about how revenues can be generated at the city level. And when we heard from communities, they were saying, give us additional tools. And there are a few locations around the state where express toll lanes could work, where we have the number of vehicles that would actually make that a viable option. US 69 is one of those, and we would have the distance and the need for improvement to really build out a corridor.
And that, I'll wrap it up with this then. And you said 69 is a highway where that would actually work. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's part of the problem. So if I were to guess why Sharice Davids asked for $617 million and only 15 of it to go to 69, would you have any input on why that is?
I would. I think, we had lots of discussions with Representative David's office, and she wanted to know what portion could she request an earmark for, or some directed spending that would make an impact on the corridor. We were in the midst of this decision, and I knew that the 167th Street interchange would be the next piece that could be added in to whatever we decide here today, whether that's traditional widening, or not today, but Monday, whether that's traditional widening or the express toll lane option. With Lenex's requests for that $600 million or so, I believe that those were forwarded, but I don't believe that members had the authority. When you review the list of what ended up in the House bill, really there was a lot lower amount per member that was granted in that bill. So Lenexa actually their request did not make it into the House legislation. Right,
but okay. And that was my question was requests, like you said, I think you said it. It was, we were discussing tolls, so we kind of got passed by in the money discussion.
I mean, I think depending on which option, we wanted to make sure that any additional federal funding that came in would extend the amount of project we could build.
Right.
The way we're looking at it now, there's a $20 million local contribution. We're going to build a $300 million project. If that earmark or directed spending comes through, it's going to become a $330 million project, and we'll be able to add 167th Street.